This is our little intro.
You know, it's just to liven it up.
Yeah.
Hello and welcome back to Humble Brags and Shopping Bags. We are super excited to be joined by Dean Salakas, Chief Party Dude.
Yep.
Chief Party Dude.
Yes.
I love that.
That's it.
Founder and Chief Party Dude of The Party People. Welcome, Dean.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Happy to be here.
Yes.
Great to catch up with you.
So excited to have you. I think you were probably one of the first people in the e-commerce industry in this country that, you know, you've got so much experience. We're really excited to kind of dive in and uncover a bit more around what you know, especially because you've been a part of all of these growth curves.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I've been
so
around a while. I had hair when I started. You know?
Stop it, really?
We need to see photo evidence.
I know. How long
I
ago
was a
that?
teenager. I mean, I helped my mum launch. Well, my mum basically said launch this online, and that was 1998.
Online. So you went straight into online.
Oh no, my mum had the business first.
Okay.
Let's
Okay.
rewind.
Rewind.
Tell us
Yep.
origin story
Origin
and
story.
tell us. Okay, first let's start on the Party People.
Yep.
Origin story and how you first started.
Yeah. So my mum was a clown in the 80s, like early 80s.
She was a
Really?
She was a clown. Yeah.
Amazing.
You didn't know this story? Have you not come to any of my talks? I thought you just knew this, right? People are sick of hearing me tell this story,
I've
you know?
come to many of your talks and I've never heard.
Yeah.
Oh, I start
you
off. You
talk
must have come
about-
in just after the intro.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. We're always late. Yeah.
So yeah, my mum was a clown. She used to do kids' parties. So like back in the 80s, you know, chocolate crackles and fairy bread and all that stuff. And then she'd entertain and then she'd clean up afterwards. That's what she did.
Yep.
And she loved it. She loved it. She's a very creative person. And she decided to open up you want the short version or long version? I'll give you a little bit in between.
Yeah, the medium.
She decided to open up a kids' party venue. And that was around the same time Macca's then decided, no joke, like 3 months later, they opened up all their venues. And so that kind of destroyed the business, but she had a bit of retail. And the retail was going mad. So she basically shut down the kids' party venue, went into retail. And that was like 1986 or something like that. Wow. And then, in 88, she was like, let's launch online. And my grandfather was like, no, let's keep with Yellow Pages. Let's go harder with Yellow Pages. I don't know if half the people listening even know what that is.
Yeah. Yellow Pages is the very old school version, the big, thick book.
Yeah.
to
I reckon
find
we have some
businesses.
listeners who don't know what it is.
Probably
reckon, I
very
reckon.
much.
Yeah, Google it. It still exists, actually, funny enough, but I don't know if anyone uses it.
Yeah.
But, so my mum said, let's launch online. And they're like, how are we going to do this? There's no, like, back then there was no platforms. There was no nothing. There was no e-commerce. There was IT people. So she got 2 IT students that were at uni to build us a website or build us a system that was a website. And I managed that process essentially. So I was in high school and
Goodness.
so I helped them do that and that's
So
where it all started.
So you were at high school when you first launched. Were you in like year 11, year 12?
Year 10, I think. Year 10.
Right.
Was it called The Party People back
It was,
then?
it was,
Wow.
yeah.
So
And we launched with Click and Collect and I only found this out like 10 years later that we were like the first
I didn't
e-commerce
even know it
retailer to launch
existed
with
back
Click and
then.
Collect
I didn't even
in
know.
Australia. Yeah.
That's wild.
So crazy.
Talk us through that though, because it was definitely not as easy or
No, it was-
as cheap to start. Like the barriers to entry were quite high. So how did you kind of kick off, especially back?
Like my mum just had this idea, right? And it's still fundamental and it's the same today, right? She was just like, oh, we've got such good products and we're the biggest in Australia, but people have to come to us. Like people were driving from Canberra to our store and like all over Sydney were coming to our store, right?
So what was she selling at the time?
Party stuff, same
Still
stuff we do
the
now.
same. Okay.
Same stuff we
Yep.
do now, but back then there was a lot less choice. So she had a 300 square meter shop and that was the biggest store in Sydney or biggest store in Australia. Our stores now, like our big one's 1,800 square meters and that's now the biggest. So obviously over time it's changed, but so people would travel to her to do that. And so she was just like, why don't we put it online? Because then people in Perth or in regional can access it. Like just the general fundamentals of allowing people to access you and on their terms, like after hours or after work or working mums or whatever it is. Just giving people access to it. And that was the concept. And I mean, when it kicked off back then, we were only getting 1 order a week or a month or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And we were like, this is mad. We got an order. Let's go
This is
pick
great.
it. How cool. You
Did
know?
did you use Australia Post for fulfillment?
We did, but they didn't have e-parcel. We'd have to walk it to the post office.
Wow.
The guy there loved it. Like we ended up being like besties with the guy from the local post office because we were sending like so much volume.
Yeah.
And we had dinner. He's like this Indian bloke. We go and had Indian at his house, like traditional Indian. It was mad, and he's like, you paid for this house, and I'm like, are you kidding me? He's like, yeah, and I'm like, shit, it's so funny.
So nice.
So we ended up doing that, but then e-parcel came along and. We're like, yeah, this is cool. Let's do that. They can come pick up from us. That's sick. I'm sick of like taking a van load of parcels. Like originally it was like wheel a trolley up the street to, oh no, it's too big. We need to drop the van to like coordinating with the guy when his post is going to pick up because it was too much. So we'd have to like drive there right at the same time so he could cross-dock them through his post office.
Wow.
It's been a fun journey for sure.
So, you obviously went through plenty of different phases.
Yeah.
What was the next phase of growth after initially sort of setting up online?
Yeah, good question. Because so my mum was driving it, and my grandfather was still like very much like old school, and me and I was managing the marketing at the time, and if we backtrack a little bit, in 2003 Google launched in Australia, and I became Google's first advertiser, and I did that through a uni project, and it was. I mean, a lot of people say, wow, you're a pioneer and all this. To be honest, it was very coincidental. I mean, I guess, luck is a bit about preparation and opportunity. I was doing a uni project and I did like a thesis on the business in 2003. And it just so happened Google was about to launch and I was doing research and it's like, oh, Google's coming to Australia with advertising. Let's get on board with that.
Yeah.
And I didn't find out till about 5 or 6 years later. Google called me up and said, do you know you were our first advertiser in Australia?
Wow.
And I was like, no, I didn't.
That's so cool.
So that's how that happened. And then Bing came along and we knew they were coming because we knew, that was me, I guess, hacking innovation again. Like I knew that Overture was managing Australia and that, Yahoo was shutting down that program. So I contacted them and said, can I advertise on Bing and Yahoo? And they said, no, you can't. And I said, well, can't I just like do what Google does? Just advertise out of Singapore or US and geo-target Australia? And they're like, yeah, I guess that'll work. So ended up then being an advertiser in Australia when there was no one advertising in Australia on Bing and Yahoo. And then when my mum and grandfather wanted to retire, that was 2006, 2007, we really saw opportunity. Like I wanted to go harder with the marketing online where they were like, no, we want to keep our budget with Yellow Page. I'm like, I want to spend as much as I can with Google. This is mad. We were paying like, when we launched with Google, paying 1 cent a click. People freak out.
Glory
that people.
Glory
1 cent a click.
Yeah.
Those were the days.
Those were the days. And then as competition came, it became more expensive. But I mean, in 2007, that was the real, when we took over, like the one thing, well, we did a couple of things. One is we changed our shipping profile. It was like $30 to Perth and $60 to rural and all this sort of stuff. We made it $9.95 flat shipping.
Wow.
And then we also, and the big thing we did was we just took off our budgets on our Google advertising. We just went triple digit growth overnight. It just went through the roof and it was crazy. And that was kind of, for us as a business, that was the inflection point. And that was like day one we took over. We made those quick switches.
Yeah.
And it was out of control. Our issue was managing growth, not getting sales. It was just like, how do we contain this beast, that we'd created?
Yeah.
And I was working at Woolies full time. So I was coming from there, straight from there at like I was working like 10-hour days there because I was a business analyst. And then I'd come home and like I'd come to the shop, straight to the store and pick orders all night. And
what
then
were you studying? You said you were at uni doing a thesis.
Yeah, I was studying marketing and ops management. Yeah.
Cool. That's relevant.
Relevant.
That helps.
So yeah, it does help.
Yeah.
It does help.
Yeah.
I think look, I guess I probably come from that background of I worked in a family business.
Yeah.
So of it was very messy, if you like, how things are done. But then went into a corporate environment as a kid, and I was just like, stuff this. Like I was taught in uni, if you want to make something happen, you will. And everyone's always going to tell you this is how it's always been done. Yeah. And that's exactly what I experienced going into corporate. And then I was just like very rogue. That's a whole nother story, that whole Woolies thing. But
how
I was just very rogue. Oh, like I mean, my career kicked off there where I was recruited first of all into head office, which at the time to get into head office, you'd have to push trolleys, then get department manager, and then and you'd been there for 20 years. I'm like straight into head office, and I'm like, I mean, later down the track, I asked my boss, "Why'd you hire me? You guys don't do that." And he's like, "Oh, you just seemed like a bull terrier, and I wanted a bull terrier at head office." And that's exactly what happened. Like I got in there, and then I got promoted a few times, and I was doing like reporting stuff and analysts and stuff, and then I saw this stuff in where they were shipping pallets around the warehouse with one packet on a pallet. of one carton of these different things. I was like, that's got a cost. And the warehouse was like, this is ridiculous, but we don't control what comes in here.
Yeah.
And I was like, we can fix this. I'm giving you the short version, by the way.
Yeah.
And there's a lot more to the story. But so I went into my manager and I said, we've got to fix this, And he's like, oh, we've tried. This has been tried many times. We can't fix that. And it's like, yeah, but why not? And he's like, it's politically insensitive and you'd add inventory if you fix this and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, there was all these reasons why not to do it. And so I went away and I started working on it. And I said, look, I've got a formula. We can fix this, And he's like, I told you not to work on it. Stop if like I basically got told,
stop
it,
working.
Do it.
Stop it,
working.
move on, right?
Yeah.
Stay in your lane. I was like, all right. So I went home and I built this Excel model, right? I did it at home. I'm like, and he's like, what? I came back the next day and he's like, I thought I told you, leave it alone. And I'm like, listen, I did it last night. I didn't do it on your time. I did it on my time. But check this out. The short version was I was like, here's $4 million worth of benefit we can save a year if we make this small little change. And they're like, oh, really? That's pretty full on. I didn't realize it was so big. I'm like, yeah, it's massive. And they're like, oh, but we can't even get it through politically. I'm like, oh, no, we can make this change in the system. They're like, how do you even know about this? I'm like, well, I did a week of experience when I started here, and they put me in that division, and I saw this little field that they've got in there they can, they can change. And the next minute, anyway, 3 months later, Woolies are saving $3 million a year, and I'd rolled this thing out, and they were like, wow, this is. And so I won an innovation award for that. And then all of a sudden, they started a new team, and we did all this fun stuff.
About you.
Yeah, this is fun. This is
amazing.
Do you know, I was at an event at part of South by Southwest yesterday.
And that's on at the moment.
Yeah, the topic of the panel was, I can't remember the exact name, but it was talking about how we always focus on entrepreneurship, but intrapreneurship is equally as important. And
Absolutely.
they're not all that dissimilar. The difference is that as an entrepreneur, you're obviously owning the business. As an intrapreneur, you're working in a business. But like that is an amazing example of somebody who was intrapreneurial. Exactly. And the premise of the panel, and they had amazing speakers, they were talking about it's a mindset. It's a mindset.
It is.
It's a mindset absolutely. Where you're wanting to push the barrier, you're wanting to think about things in a different way. And even if you're told, oh, we've always done it this way, or we've always been, you can't touch that because it's too hard. No. I'm going to do it and I'm going to solve a problem.
Yeah,
I love that story. And these types of stories need to come out more because it's an underspoken about area, right? And you're now obviously an entrepreneur, but you started off your career
and the principles don't change though. I mean, when I was at Woolies, you had to do stakeholder management and all that sort of stuff. And it still applies even in a small to medium business like we are now. Like I still need to engage people and bring them on the journey. Like at Woolies, the way I did that with that first project and then I replicated that a number of times afterwards was I got senior management to just go, holy shit, we need to fix that. With that big $4 million, $4 million, you still have to do that, in a small business. You still need to bring people on the journey, get them excited so that they drive it, not that you're driving it,
Yeah.
And that's why it's so important that you make sure that you're hiring people who are not the same, because you need those different personalities and characters and people from different backgrounds who are going to challenge the norms, who are going to be a little bit of a rebel or whatever the characteristic is. And they're the ones that are going to drive change. And I know that even you now, because you're in charge of all the hiring and whatnot, I know that's a big thing for you too.
Yeah,
I know that diversity is very important to you. And it's
massive,
also something I think that just comes second nature to you. It's not something you really have to think about, is it?
Yeah, it isn't. Like, we talk about like, the diversity thing. And like, it's not a factor we just hire the best people for the role. But I mean, recently I did hire 2 people for one role. But there was deliberate diversity there, but not about their cultural background or any of that stuff. It was actually just about that one's like a bull terrier, a bit like that. And that one's super laid back.
Yeah.
And they both have different skill sets. I love the difference in dynamic there. I want that in my team to have that dynamic. And you got to manage it. It's trickier to manage people that are different.
Yeah.
Because, got this person over here super ambitious and this person that's, and you're going to have that tension. But, I guess it's just more about have the conversation with them about it, like making sure that everyone understands who they are. And I want you to be the bull terrier and I want you to be laid back to each of those guys. And don't be worried about the fact that your job's not under threat because this person's ambitious. And you got to have all those conversations and manage all of that. But I do love the diversity in my team. I've got a very colourful bunch.
Yeah. And we often, I think people think about diversity and they automatically go male or female, but diversity is so much deeper and so much broader than that. It is skill sets, it's how you've been raised, it's religious beliefs, it's where you're from, like, And I think it's important to call that out, is that actually, diversity in skill sets is also incredibly important.
Yeah. I mean, it's probably easier for me to do that as well. Like you said, like even like cultural background. Like I love that I go, we got Diwali coming up. All right, who's Indian in our team? I'm going to go find out what's going on with Diwali. You know what I mean? Or and just go, hey, and then, we're looking at product range. It's like, I don't know what I'm going to buy for Diwali. What do I know about Diwali? So call the guys in and say, give us some of your advice. Or hens nights, like, I mean, I've got to sit there and look at my buyer stuff for hens nights. Like, what do we know about hens nights? Like, the ladies go, what is this stuff what you'd buy? I don't go to hens nights. What do I know about it? You know what I mean? So
Dean just repping it.
Yeah, that's it.
I know exactly.
I've got to do research. I have to attend a few.
Yeah. I have to. This is funny, right? I don't know if you can say this on here, but I'm going to say it anyway. You can beep it out if you want. But like I was out. Like I remember like early days of owning the party people. I was out at out at a nightclub or whatever, and the girls were eating the hens night and they were walking around with the penis straw. I'm like, where did you buy that penis straw from? And they go, the party people. I'm like, cool. So they're like, why would you ask that? She goes, I go, I own that business. She's like, bullshit. And I'm like, no. I was like, so random. So random. I was just curious. I did love it. But it's just so funny. Anyway, you can beep out some of that stuff if you want.
No, not at all. We love it. Let's just rewind a little bit, because obviously you had a really interesting and successful time at Woolies, which is awesome. What was your shift from, okay, I'm now going full-time into the party people?
Yeah, so like I said, I started at Woolies, I think around 2004. I took over ownership in 2007 of the business, and it took off. So really, it took off, and I was working like crazy hours. I did quit like 4 times, and I ended up staying. They found a way to give me a real good incentive to stay, and it was during GFC as well. Like we're going through triple-digit growth, but it was also GFC, so we were kind of like, is this going to continue, or is this just like a bit of luck and it's going to crash and burn? So I was hedging my bets for a little while.
What do you put that down to? Is it purely the fact that you made those changes in terms of the way that you advertised, and you were the first to really double down on that? Because it seems to me like you're going through GFC, spend is down, economy is crashing. You've got a business that, if people aren't going to do corporate parties or whatever it might be, your business was at the front line of being affected by that, but it wasn't. So what do you put that down to?
Look, definitely we had a formula, I guess this is probably going to oversimplify it, but we had a formula which we looked at what was costing to spend money on an advertising, like, what was it costing us versus what did it cost us to service. We knew what our margin was. Yeah. And we could flex up our marketing spend based on that formula essentially, and know that every order we got or every dollar we spent on Google was returning us 1.5.
Yeah.
We knew that. So we're like, how many ones can we spend to get 1.5?
Yeah.
And so we just maxed that out, and that was kind of the thing. And it's partly because at the time there was a lack of competition, I guess.
Yeah.
So we could just do that much more freely. Today it's so much harder.
Yeah.
But back then it was more about, it was really a gold rush, I guess, back then.
So fast forward to COVID 2020, do you feel like that had prepared you to deal with scenarios like that, or was it like a completely different ballgame? How did you guys go through that period?
Look, COVID's probably a slightly different conversation.
Yeah.
What I think prepared us best for COVID was the fact that we'd innovated early, and I'd had that, almost like I had a couple of wins on the board, and then we kept innovating and we kept doing innovation, and people were like, oh, you guys are really innovative. And we kind of had that culture of innovation. And then COVID hit and our sales went, we were down 92% when COVID hit. 92%. Overnight, bang. Yeah. That first week, I remember looking at the sales, 92% down that first week COVID hit. Yeah. And we were like, shit, we are effed if this goes this way, right? We are done. Like we're out of business. Yeah. Like we looked at our run rate. How long can we sustain this? Like a couple of months. It's like we're done. So this is a story. Like I went out on the shop floor. Like we had 8% of sales. I was asking, like we had this, we're having this crisis where we're like, oh, fuck, what are we gonna do? It's like, all right, well, what are the 8% actually buying? Like lockdown, you can't have parties. Exactly. What's this 8%?
Yeah.
So I literally went out on the floor with my brother and we served the customers. We were like, and asking him questions like, what are you buying? What is it for? We found out pretty much within that day that people were buying stuff to do in lockdown. They were buying stuff to, do with their kids, have fun. It wasn't about parties. It was about things to do in lockdown. So we found that baking was popular. We found that dress up was popular. We found out toys and games were popular. And learning all of that, we then re-engineered our homepage to say, coronavirus survival is what we called it. It's like big banner on the homepage. And then the actual categories were, those categories, we heroed them. And those categories we already played in. We just expanded the ranges in those categories. And we bounced back. We ended up beating pre-COVID numbers just by that slight pivot,
Insane.
And I think that's what prepared me is like, we were able to pivot so quickly. Like that was within a week, we were able to get a whole new website, like a whole new structure on our website up. And the reason was we'd been kind of experienced with innovation and moving fast. And it's like, we got to move fast here. And we got to try to find out what the customer, what's going on
right now.
And then pivot,
Do you know, we hear this all the time. And we've now done quite a few interviews with really successful businesses and entrepreneurs. And when you go deeper into the why and what they do, it's like, we just ask our customers what they want.
Yeah.
Isn't
what are they
crazy?
doing? We just speak to them and we go, okay, well, if they're all saying the same thing in terms of what they want or what they like about our business, it's either we pivot to give them what they want or we double down on what they like. And I feel like that is just a great representation of
100%,
you acted so quickly to just go, hey, let's just talk to the customer.
I mean, what I probably learned is that we didn't really know our customer. And the funny thing is that every business ever says they know their customer, but not all of them do, I guess. And that's what I learned. I was like, shit, do I really know my customer? They're not even buying what I thought they were buying. I mean, they changed. My customer had changed.
Yeah, exactly.
But I mean, that was one thing, like you said, like, I mean, it really made us go, oh man, we really need to be asking our customers more what's going on. We need to be looking at our reviews more. We need to have a bit more of a focus on what that feedback coming up the chain is. So we can make the decisions we need to make to tailor, because I mean we got such a big win out of COVID from that. How can we replicate that after COVID now that we learned those lessons?
And what have you changed as part of your core business processes to kind of lean into that?
Look, I think it's probably more of it's more about talking to our frontline staff and getting that feedback up the chain, because they talk to customers all day. So it's more about having those conversations with our frontline staff and getting that feedback. And when we go to make change, having those conversations with the managers to just making sure, again, more stakeholder management, getting that frontline view, because it's so easy not to do that, because you go, I know this is going to work and I'm just going to do it, but you really need to find out what's going on from the customers at the front line.
And what's the percentage split of sales between in-store and online at the moment?
It's about our stores are about 60-40, something like that.
Okay, it's still great for online.
Relatively even.
So you've been around for so long, and obviously you've been through the evolution of e-commerce. What are some of the, I guess, how have you adapted with those changes, and what are some of the biggest changes you've seen through your time? Biggest
changes? Look, definitely like changes in last mile has been sort of the battleground for the last few years. Obviously now we're seeing probably more the battle in marketplaces. It's probably the big shift, to marketplace. And what does that mean? I guess the big, you look at the US, who most people say is a few years ahead of us, and you're like, well, Amazon is like the lion's share of online sales. So is that where we're going? And trying to understand where, like that's where I'm at the moment. Is just
have you ever sold on marketplace?
No, we do. Yeah, we sell on eBay? 8 or something.
Okay,
8 marketplaces. So yeah, I mean, I saw that as a battleground around the last. I mean, for me, that was a real growth area for the last 2 years. Just getting onto different marketplaces. How many can we get on? Each of them are incremental volume, and scaling that, and that's been sort of a fun little add-on to what we've been doing.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
So I think they're kind of the big changes I've seen lately.
Yeah. And when it comes to levers to pull, like when it is times of crisis or time for a next phase of growth, what is like the one area of the business where you're like, okay, this is the lever we're going to put? Like, do you look into, like you said, the front line? Do you dig into technology? Is it marketing? Is it product? What's like?
Yeah, I don't know that there's one answer to that question. I think it depends on the situation at the time. Look, we're not. There's a few things we do that we're not great at as well. Like, I mean, we don't do email marketing that good, and there's a few things that are like socially we're not as good as we probably could be. So really, like, we're kind of focusing on those areas where we know we're weak. But yeah, I mean, it's probably not giving you a good answer in terms of just generally, but it's kind of like looking at our whole business and going, where are we weak? I mean, at the moment, it's really hard with the economy the way it is, because if you looked at straight out of COVID, sales were going through the roof for certain categories, and changes you made had big impacts. And so they were low risk as a result because you're like, oh, there's volume to be had here. What changes can we make? Whereas now it's really hard as a CEO to make decisions because everything you do is huge risk. You're looking at investing in an area to get more sales, but so is everyone else. And sales are harder to come by. So it's like, it's really hard to grow right now.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are just kind of going, let's just keep what we've got to get through this.
Yeah.
Let's not push forward, which is not, which is kind of where we're at the moment a little bit.
Yeah.
We are looking at acquisitions as well because that brings acquisitions on the table.
Yeah.
But yeah, for us, it's also more like, let's just try to keep what we've got and maintain that and make incremental improvement rather than do something radical. I mean, I've done this mirror project, which we'll probably talk about, which is radical, but but generally speaking, I'm trying to keep things sort of pretty steady.
Yeah. So I think like it's quite admirable, the longevity of the business.
Yeah.
What, like, I don't want to say one thing, I don't want you to narrow it down, but what would you say, like, the success, what can you attribute it to?
Oh, look, I definitely would say the number one thing is we focus on profit.
Yeah.
And I know that sounds like so fundamental.
Just know your numbers.
Know your numbers. And profit is the ultimate goal. Like, we don't care about sales.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I obviously we go to all these events and stuff and there's retailers in the room that are 10 times the size of me. But it doesn't bother me, right? Because I know I've been profitable for the last 20 years.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's what's important to me.
Yes.
Profit is so key.
Yeah.
So like I don't chase volume for the sake of volume. It's got to be profitable volume.
Yeah.
Which is, kind of when I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast about a formula.
Yeah.
I mean, over time, yes, our Google volume has been eroded because we have a formula and we're like, we only want the sales through Google that are profitable. And if my competitors are advertising on the word party supplies, because every single one of them is, and I appear in position 10 or 15, I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
Because they're all trying to fight for the top spot. And so they can have it if they're going to be spending $5 a click,
Yeah.
So I think for me, like, that's the number one thing is just such a focus on profit.
Yeah.
And when things change, making those business model adjustments, no matter how much ego takes a hit on it,
Well, I think we're coming into a new age where profit is key. And I think that businesses are slowly starting to realize that revenue isn't the only metric they should be or could be looking at. And clearly you're ahead of the curve there. I know that I was on South by Southwest on a panel around women in the creator economy, and there was a one of the questions that was asked was from a woman around who was an accountant that consulted and consulted to e-commerce businesses around profitability. She was like, do you think that there's a space for my content and my knowledge within the area? I'm like, are you kidding me?
Well, Anita from Hero Packaging was on that panel, right?
Yeah.
And she had that huge crisis with the business purely because of profitability.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, knowing your numbers in this day and age is the most important thing that you need to be focusing on and thinking about. But it must feel refreshing to know that that's basically what you started with. Like,
yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's kind of catch-22, right? You go to these events and then everyone's doing it at 100 million and you're like, oh, I'm kind of a small fry here.
Yeah.
But
100 million and 1% profit
or making
versus
a loss.
Something where you're all making a loss, which many businesses do. Or, we might not have the revenue, but we've got X percentage profitability, which means that you're sitting pretty, So it's just, it's really admirable and refreshing to hear you kind of put that front and center. Yeah.
It is definitely like something obviously we're a business, we're in it for making money, and that's what all businesses are. But as a family business, me and my brother are the owners of the business. We've got to put food on the table, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's definitely like it's the only thing that matters to us.
How do you manage that? Because obviously you'd have a fairly extensive category. You talk about categories and category management.
Yeah, we've got 35,000 products.
Wow. Yeah, you got a lot of products, a lot of SKUs. How do you manage that when we're talking about profitability? Because that would be quite a
It's so funny. It's almost contradictory, but
yeah,
I would say
it is, 'cause
I would say there's a lot of products in our range that sell really poorly. But we stock them for strategic reasons, and that's contra to profitability. But it is all about our USP, and like for us, we want customers to be able to come to us and get everything that they want, and that's the key for us, and that does result in a profitable outcome. And especially when you're talking about incremental sales, and we do upsells, for example, at the checkout, and every business does, to try to get that extra $5 out of the customer. We do that by having the range because someone goes, I'm having a frozen party. Well, by us having 500 different options of products, naturally their basket becomes bigger because they've got more options. So it definitely is still related to profit, but for us, it's probably more comes back to just our USP. Like we're the party people. You come to us, you can get it all under your own roof, which is what makes us different from discount stores. Like you can go to Big W and get stuff for half the price you can buy it for us, but if you're having a frozen party and you want like
everything, you want to buy everything.
You're only going to get 10.
You want the napkins at the table. I know. I only shop where I can get everything. For Amelia's birthday parties because it's such a headache getting little bits and pieces. So it's very important.
What's your? This is probably a really hard question with the number of SKUs you've got, but what's your most popular product?
Oh, you know what? I get asked this all the time.
I know.
It's hard. I'm sure it'll change all the time, right?
Depends on the
category. It changes and it depends on the category. I mean, right now it's spider webs because it's Halloween.
Spider webs.
Spider webs the biggest selling SKU. Depends if you're looking by like a group of products. It's actually contact lenses in terms of dollar value.
Contact lenses.
Because people are dressing up.
Yeah. I mean, this year, Wednesday costumes and Barbie costumes are the two biggest sellers.
Of course.
Yes. How did you go with Barbie? Like the explosion of Barbie this year?
It was just hard to get the product, to be honest. But we were all over it. And I think, and again, that's where, like, to be honest, it's probably more experience.
Yeah.
Like we went massive on Wednesday. Last year we went massive on Squid Games. And it's just the experience we've had because we've been through these iterations before. And I actually had the conversation with Simon Beard from Culture Kings. We were having dinner one night. He's like, oh, what are you doing around Squid Games? You know, I'm like, yeah, no, we've gone massive. He's like, really? That's a big gamble. I'm like, we've seen it before with so many other things that we just know. It's like, there's no science to it. It's like, this is going to be the big thing this year. And we need to not stock out because everyone's going to go out of stock and then you're going to be the only one left with stock. And it's the biggest thing. So let's go hard.
Did you ever do Money Heist?
We did, which is kind of, I based Squid Games a little bit on Money Heist. Because the other thing was Money Heist was around for like 7 years or something. It kept rolling and it kept selling. And I was like, well, worst case with Squid Games, A, the red jumpsuit can pass for Money Heist.
Yeah, true.
But B, this is not going to be a 1 year thing. This is going to be this is going to roll for 100%. A long time.
So, and that's probably like next question then is trends must be very important for you and for your business.
Huge.
Number one, how do you spot them? But number two, how do you respond to them quickly? Because ultimately, you might have a trend, you want to be first to respond to it, but the back end of that is the supply management, the manufacturing, the knowing where to buy the product. What does that look like for you?
Yeah, so look, first of all, where do we spot them? Like either the buyer spots them through being approached by the license holder or whatever, saying, hey, we've got these products, because we have those meetings with all those people. So them saying, hey, this is what's going to be hot. I would say more so we all have a feel for it as well because we're all living it. Like I'm the chief party dude. I'm living it. I've got 2 kids.
You're on Netflix. You're watching Netflix.
All that. I'm watching Netflix. I got my buyer who's also a mum and she's got kids and she gets it and she's all over social media and she loves what she does. So she's always checking stuff out and saying, damn, we need to do this and we need to do that. But from there, once you've got that sort of looking at different things that we're looking at in terms of trends, it really is a guess based on experience what to do with that. Certain things, like we've got the movie Wish coming up, which people are saying could be as big as Frozen, and I'm like, I don't know. I've seen plenty of these things come and not take off either. And it's really a judgment call. Like, how do I look at Wish and go, this is maybe not going to be huge, but look at Frozen like we did and go, oh, this is going to be massive. Let's go hard. And we got it right. I mean, don't get me wrong. We get it wrong a lot too.
Yeah, I was going to ask, like, when have you got it wrong?
Oh, heaps of times. We get it wrong. I can't think of an example, but
it's hard to, because
we do get it wrong. We do get it wrong a lot.
Older trends come back into fashion. Like my daughter just is recently obsessed with a movie called The Descendants. And I had never heard of it. And she's like, oh, I'm obsessed and I want to go to Book Week as the Descendants. And I was like, surely there's no costumes like Descendant. And I went online, there were heaps. And I was like, it's amazing because it was kind of like an older thing, but now it's becoming more trendy. But you really have to keep up with everything.
It is hard to keep up, and you miss some, and you make some mistakes on some. But generally, and that's why I'd say like experience is pretty important in what we do, because I've seen enough, made enough mistakes, made enough successful decisions to probably make the most informed decision. But like if we get it right 80% of the time, we're pretty happy.
Yeah. Is there any trend where everyone went, nah, that's not going to be a thing, and you went, oh no, it's going to be a thing?
look, Squid Game was kind of like that. I mean,
Yeah.
people were like, oh, Squid Games. And I was like, yeah, but it also had a lot. Like I was like, oh, but Squid Games, you can go as a group. It can be a group
Yeah.
costume.
Yeah.
And there's no limit to the group. Like,
Yeah,
if you go
yeah.
like Adam's Family, it's like, oh, I need 4 or 5 people
Yeah,
and
yeah,
all
yeah.
that.
Whereas
Whereas Squid Game was like,
big.
if you got 2,
loved
4,
Squid
6, 8, 20, you can
Yeah.
go as a group no matter
Yeah.
what. So the versatility of it. But yeah, like with Squid Games, I went super hard last year.
Okay.
Just went crazy, and you couldn't buy the costume from anyone but us in the end.
Nice.
And that
Love
was
that.
mad. That was mad.
Yeah.
Are you dressing up as anything this year?
I am, but like the funny thing about this stuff is I let my kids lead it, so
Yeah.
we're all going as skeletons this year. They
Oh,
wanted to go as
cute.
skeletons, so we're going as a family of
Okay.
skeletons.
Aw.
Whatever they want, you
Yeah,
know,
exactly.
I'll let
I
them
love
try
it.
it.
Yeah,
I mean,
love
I had Book Week recently, and
Yeah.
man, what a nightmare! Like they changed the costume 3 times. So, I mean, I own a costume shop, and Book Week was so hard.
Yeah.
I mean,
Imagine for us
how did you deal
normal
with it? Oh
people.
my
Yeah,
god,
exactly.
it would have been a nightmare.
Yeah. I love it. Well, let's talk about the mirror
The
activation.
mirror.
which
Speaking of
is-
costumes,
I know.
Yeah, very
Yes.
cool. So tell us about it. How did you come up with it? How did you
how long we
bring it
got?
to
I could
life?
talk all day. you
Yeah, I
know?
know.
You're the one with the time limit.
I think it's like, okay.
Where do we
start
start?
off with
Yeah.
what it is, how you got to kind of figuring how did you ideate it, and then kind of that journey to launch.
Yeah. So the mirror, the augmented reality mirror, or the project, the Magic Mirror project, it's an augmented reality mirror. So people can stand in front of the mirror. They can try costumes on. So it puts costumes, it overlays it on you. Overlaying would be a simplification. It does wrap you in the costume. So you can turn around and see the back and stuff. So it wraps you in the costume, and then you can change costumes on the mirror. And then you can actually check out on the mirror, which, to be honest, the checkout feature is something that we've added that's world first. These mirrors do exist. Lululemon's tried it, and I think Gap in the US have tried. A few retailers have tried it. I mean, Mecca has one where you can do makeup, and Oakley have sunglasses. So few people have done these things, but no one's ever added checkout. That's the one thing that was the difference between what we did. So it started, I'd say, pre-COVID, 2019, the year before COVID, we did a pop-up store, and we put this augmented reality mirror in our store, in a pop-up store. We didn't have checkout, but people could try it on. And the experience was awesome. Customers were coming in, kids were playing with it. Like it brought people into the shop just to play with it, which was great because that's foot traffic, And so we just like the experience for the customer and the brand interaction was mad. And the foot traffic that we were like, this is sick. We need to do something with this. The costs were very difficult for us as a medium. Like, again, we talk about profitability. It was very difficult to justify from a profitability perspective because it was very much a marketing play, which makes it very difficult. So look, COVID hit, and we were like, very much focus on cost and manage the business to what's important because, every CEO knows that period was crazy in terms of overload, in terms of what decision-making was getting made on a daily basis. The government was giving new information, and we were changing our whole focus. Our whole 3, 6, 9, 12-month strategy was changing every other day. So we parked it for, sort of 2 years. And coming out of COVID, and this started about, I'd say 2 years ago, coming out of COVID, I kind of saw the mirror and I went, could we find a way to make this profitable, make it stand on its own, make this decision an easy one? And I was like, can we add checkout? And they're like, maybe we could look into it. So I guess fast forward to now, what happened between then and now, I guess, was I started having conversations with people about this crazy idea I had, because I actually probably thought it would never happen. I thought, no, I'm never going to, this thing was going to, when I started looking at it, I was like, this is going to cost me 150 grand to integrate all the solutions I need to make this happen. It's just, I'm never going to do it. It's a fun idea. Let's just chat. So I was out at drinks, I think at online retailer, and just chatting to people about it, going, how cool would this be? Blah, blah. Anyway, the things that fell out of those conversations was people going, oh, that's so cool. We'd help you with that project. We'd fund some of it. And it's like, oh, really? Okay. And they're like, well, look, if you can find some others, we'll fund this part of it. I'm like, all right. So then I started having conversations, and people were saying, we'll give you some money to do this. Not only will give you our service and our software for free, but we'll give you some money to do it. And let's see if we can create a whole new retail channel. And that's what it was like. I was like, surely not. Like this, I'm not going to get this whole thing paid for. And so I ran it past my brother, who's my business partner, and said, I want to do this. Like, you can only do it if you get it fully paid for. I'm not gambling on this thing. Like, he didn't believe in it at all.
So good.
And I'm like, so I think I got half the money to do it halfway. And I went back to him, like, I got half. Can you believe it? I didn't even think I'd get halfway.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, that's really cool. But you got to get all the way. Or
Keep
it's
going.
just, I'm just not spending that money on this project, you know? Like it's our busiest time of year, Halloween.
Yeah.
I don't want to be distracted by a project. We should focus on Halloween, you know? So I was like, all right. So anyway, the long story short, between Uber, you know, Starship It, Stock in Store, ShopX, I'm going to miss someone. I'm going to get real big trouble here. But between all the partners, essentially we got this fully funded and yeah, it was like, okay, went back to my brother, we're doing it now. And he's like, all right, we're doing it.
Okay.
So and that's how we got to where we are now. So yeah, these guys all provided their solutions, helped me with funding. And yeah, it was fully paid for before I even started, which was super cool.
That's number one. What I absolutely love about our industry is that we all rally together to help out.
Yeah, they
And number
do.
two, it's an awesome idea. So obviously, when you have an awesome idea that you want to be brought to life, people will jump on it. So very cool.
I couldn't believe it. I didn't think it would happen, to be honest.
No.
Well, talk us through that process of launching it, because obviously it's never easy to launch something.
It was the roller coaster you expected, I have to say.
It's a product. It's never going to be easy, right? But you persisted, you kind of overcame the challenges, overcame the hurdles, and you've now launched it. That must have been a pretty wild ride.
It was. And I guess like, you know, when I did it as well, I probably thought, I'm sure we can do this and I'm sure it won't be as hard, but I know it's going to be hard. I just don't know what yet. And yeah, all those things that you don't know, they kept coming. And it was like, the amount of times that we were like, it can't be done, we got to shut this down, it was probably at least 5 times, I reckon. We were like, we hit like OH&S issues, like, you know, the shopping center said, you can't do this, it's over 1.5 meters, we're shutting you down. And then it was like, what do you mean you're shutting me down? Like, can't we talk about this? They're like, well, no, that's the rule. I'm like, you know, I want to speak to management, find out what's going on. You know, again, it was just, we hacked through that. It was like, what's the problem? It could fall on someone. Cool, we'll get an engineer to certify that it's safe. And the engineer looked at it and said, you got to widen the base, you know, or add weight.
Yeah.
So we had all this engineering, like I've learned all these things about wind factors in shopping centers and like apparently there's tunnel wind that adds to the factor and all this sort of stuff. So then we got through that problem. Then when we put the mirrors in there for a little test, there's no Wi-Fi in that. There just happens to be no internet in the one spot we picked to put the bloody mirror. Can you believe it?
Of course.
There's no internet.
It was a black spot
It was a black
in the
spot.
shopping centre.
What did you do? Did you move
I was like,
it?
what luck? Like,
You're
are you
like,
kidding
why?
me? Of all the
Anywhere
problems.
else.
How did you solve that?
We ended up getting
Tethering.
boosters and getting and finding that Labara works of all networks.
Labara.
4G
That's what my
Telstra
mum
doesn't
uses.
work,
What's
but
Labara?
Labara.
My mum uses
so
that
got a
to talk to
Labara
Egypt.
dongle. Like we had to try 5 different networks to figure out if any of them would work. Because we was like, if none of them work, we're really screwed. And then Labara, of all things, one network worked. So anyway, we just kept having like issues like this. Which is probably what is normal for tech, but I'm not used to that because I haven't been played in that space. But man, it just kept coming. Like, the other thing is the mirror is self-contained, so it's not actually a website. It's a software, right? It's like an app in a way, but it doesn't need internet connection. But that's also a problem because all these service providers have built their softwares around needing IP address and connecting and being integrated that way. So we kept hitting problems with the tech as well around integrating solutions. But anyway, so it almost didn't happen about 5 times, but each time, you know, I guess the solution partners were really, probably the one thing that helped this again was just the passion and the drive from the solution providers that were involved and going, we'll find a way. Yeah. And we did each time. We found a way around it and people pushed. And it was probably different to my days at Woolies that we spoke about earlier where it was all like, it can't happen. I just kept hitting brick walls. Everyone's like, all right, let's work through this. Like, let's all do it. And everyone was just like, let's get through it. Internet problem. All right. Try this, try that, keep trying. We'll find a way. You know, everyone was just like, we're going to make this happen no matter what. Yeah. Let's just keep pushing. And there was a real drive. Yeah, and I think that's what helped get me through because I don't know if I would have been able to keep motivated through all of that, you know.
Would you do it again?
I don't
Dean's
know.
like,
Ask me
still
later.
in the thick of it. That's why. Yeah,
it's been full on. It's been full on. Look, when we went into this project, the one thing I said at the outset was the worst case scenario is this is going to be an awesome marketing experience. Yeah. Like for the customers, it's going to be an awesome marketing exercise. And best case, we create a whole new retail channel and this thing explodes. Yeah. So it's definitely been an awesome marketing. Like the amount of people that are going to the shop and the traffic that is driving and the brand interaction and the fact that I've got a store in that area which is really poorly located, and I'm creating huge awareness for that store is awesome.
Yeah.
So it's definitely been a win in terms of a project. In terms of the mirror, like people actually checking out on the mirror, we've been through, I think, 5 iterations now of changes to try. I've been sitting there working on my laptop watching people use the mirror and then providing feedback to the guys, and we've been changing stuff to try to make that technology, like trying to figure out this technology piece on how the user interface has to work. So look, there's still work to be done there, but like the interest I've had from property groups and the big ones, and you'd be able to guess them, the people listening, I just can't say exactly, but the biggest property groups in the country, massive retailers have been contacting me saying, we want to have a look at this tech. So it could be the next channel. I don't know, but
I
definitely
think
having
it
a
has
lot of
very good
conversations.
chance, and I'm going to refer people back to this podcast when it does become a channel.
You're the first ones to hear about it. You heard it here first.
100%.
This is the first podcast I've done.
It's
on
got
it.
legs, man, because you've got your store in Campbelltown.
Yeah.
Imagine being able to have physical presence in many different other suburbs, and they have instant checkout as well. And is it click and collect? Is
click and collect
yep,
as well? Yep.
Yeah.
So they can order on the mirror and go downstairs and pick it up.
Yeah.
There's
just so many. Yeah. There's so many pathways, but also for me, and again, we haven't actually gone to the shopping centre to experience in person, but we have seen videos, and we will make it down there at some point to record for this podcast and for these clips. But it's very what's the word? Like responsive. Very user friendly, which I find that probably where this type of project has gone pear-shaped in the past was, number one, couldn't check out, but number two, it was laggy. Like, you've done a really good job at making it incredibly responsive and incredibly like you said, user friendly.
Yeah, I can't take credit for that. That's the tech guys. But the tech guys
amazing.
I got involved in this are really good.
Yeah.
The ShopX guys, they've worked with me through it. And to link back to what we were talking about earlier about understanding the customer, and that's why I'm sitting at a coffee shop watching people interact with it, because that's probably where other people are falling over. They're just putting it in, and the tech guys, I had a list of things that the tech guys wanted to do. They said, these are the things we're going to add through the project. These are going to come in the next few weeks. We threw that out. I went, no. Let's just wait day one. Let's see what people use, and then we'll figure it out. And they were completely different things to what they had on their list, because they're like, this is cool, this is cool, this is cool. It's like, no, we need to work on the UI, guys. We've added, the people have got to touch to start. We've got to remove the touch because people then start wanting to touch. And so we've done all these different changes by me watching, going, okay, guys, there was a kid standing there and he couldn't even see himself on the mirror because he's too short. Things like that. You just don't think about from it. The tech guys don't think about that stuff, where I'm like sitting there working on my laptop going, what's going on here? Oh shit, okay. We need to fix that, guys. Need to readjust the sensor so that a small kid can fit on
just
it.
Imagine you sitting there with like a cap and glasses, just
be
watching people.
Just like jumping out, being like, can you tell me what you like? But like, that's the only way to iterate, because ultimately you're creating an immersive experience where people have to interact with this one like station. If you don't get it right, then there's no point. But you can't expect to get it right immediately because no one's done it before.
No. So we're trying stuff. I mean, we're definitely like a testing phase. Like we're the guys are like, what are we going to do with this screen? I'm like, just change it, put it in, and we'll test it. If it's wrong, we'll roll it back. But we might as well give it a go. We've got this 3-week period to do a bunch of stuff. Let's see how it goes. And I mean, both screens actually have different UIs. Deliberate, because we want to go, well, which one's, it's a bit like split testing in a way, which most people listening to this will probably understand, but split testing, saying, okay, which one works better? Which screen attracts people more when they're walking past? Because we initially had the problem with the screens when we first we put up this nice professional display, and everyone just walked past because they see these screens like and
they just
think they're shopping centre screens, right? There's all these shopping centre screens in the shopping centre. So they didn't, like, the first day it was crickets. It was like people just walking past.
Right, because they didn't actually...
Sorry. We have a sound for that.
I love that. It was exactly like that, right? It was exactly like that.
Yeah, because you'd walk past and just think it's another digital screen or an advertiser screen.
Or info.
So what did you do?
So we just made it heaps crazy. I called my merchandiser, come upstairs, bring as much stuff as you can and just make it all crazy. And then we did that and see if that works. And that did do the trick a little bit.
What do you mean by make it crazy? Put
we had
things around
balloons
it.
up, and we had costume samples there. And we had a lot of Halloween stuff around it.
Yeah.
We changed the front screen to be like more engaging, like touch here, touch, like come to start, try on your free costume, try it on for free, like just more engaging rather than professional.
Yeah.
And that made a huge difference. People are now using it ongoing. Like now it's pretty constant stream of people coming through and actually using it. Like as they walk past, oh, let's check this out. And then the more people that use it, you get that crowding effect. Like people start crowding
people
around.
Like, oh, what is this? Well, exactly. And you need to, I think, again, comes down to the importance of UI and UX, so user experience, is that you can't assume that somebody knows what they're going to have to do. You have to guide them through it. Yeah. It's like the back in Adelaide, there's on the run petrol stations, and you walk out the door, and there's either all it is a green happy face or a red like dissatisfaction face. It's literally like press me, and they make it so interactive and so like, oh yeah, I'm going to press the button for sure.
Everyone loves pressing
a button. And they put it in a location where you just can't miss it.
Yeah.
But if it was in any other location, you just walk straight past. And I feel like it's actually probably a massive problem that you don't think about.
It's a massive problem with the mirror as well, because it's not like anyone's ever used this type of tech before. Exactly. It's not like it's not a phone, and it's not a learned behavior. It's not a desktop. It's completely different. And they've got a gesture to touch the button. Yeah. And so, we've worked through. People are getting it now with some of the iterations we've made. People are now, the way it was. To be honest, it was a simple change, but it made people start going, oh, and then people start like seeing their hand moving and seeing, we've got a little cursor on the screen now where their hand is. So they can see that moving, going, what's moving that? And they realize that it's their hand. It's
like the Wii
and then
console.
It's exactly like a Wii. Yeah.
And there's no sound, is there?
There's no sound, but we are going to add sound actually, because I was like, it'd be so cool if like you do Darth Vader. It's like,
well, it can also like bring people in. When I was just in Thailand, some of the shopping centers had like little robots walking around talking to you to buy stuff in the shopping centers.
And I want to add a little fairy as well that flies around and tells people what to do, even more. Where we took that from was more like, I was saying this probably more fits more like a video game. We want it to be more like how video games work in terms of how they show you how to use the video. Like when you open a video game, not that probably any of us are gamers, but I play the odd video game here and there. And when you play it, the first time you pick up the game has some kind of tutorial or whatever. And so that's what we're looking at, video games and how they do it, and going to try to bring in that. My idea was like get a fairy to go around and say, press this button now and go do this and go do that. Yeah. But anyway, I don't know how that's going to work for fashion, but something similar like that to make it just more obvious until people start realizing what a mirror is and it becomes more intuitive. Yeah. And then the next gen would be different again, because we've got to take them to exactly what to do. Yeah. We've got to tell them, put your hand up. Yeah. We've got to tell them, press this button with hovering your hand. We've got to actually spell it out at the moment.
Yeah. I think it's amazing what you've done in pushing the boundaries and creating something that is truly innovative in the sense of, you've thought about a problem and then figured out how to solve for that. So hats off to you. Mm-hmm. What is next for this project? Like, what is your vision?
Yeah, you know what, I've been asked this, and I've got a few visions, and I don't know which one it's going to be. There's definitely a lot of use cases for the mirror. Yeah. And I'm having these conversations with the property groups and the retailers at the moment. There's the use case of hoarding. When they someone's going to open a new store and then the people can interact and shop the brand. There's that kind of use case. And that's one that a few retailers are looking at with their store launches. The next one is obviously in-store is the obvious one. So you can have it in change rooms. Mm-hmm. And where the thinking with that is more about accessorizing. So like you might physically try a suit on, but you want to know what different shirts look like. So you can change the shirt or you can change the scarf and you buy a shirt or whatever it is, accessorize it. I've actually got a piercing place looking at it where they do piercings because they want to see what the piercings look like on the nose or on the tongue or whatever it is. So that's quite an interesting use case for it.
Interesting.
So there's that. Then there's the whole window shopping thing, because obviously like there's a thing called window shopping, but you can't actually shop from a window, where this could actually put it in the window and people can actually shop the window. So that's another use case for like more strip malls.
Yeah, next level merchandising.
You could even have it as a standalone, not a part of a
Well,
shop,
that's what I've done it as.
Yeah,
I've done it as a pop-up.
Yeah.
And that's the other one. So there's like a bunch of different sort of visions for it. Yeah. The other fun conversation I'm having, because I love having fun with this stuff, is, a company contacted me. I probably can't say too much, but they can they actually can create a vending machine that we could put this on the front of. And we're talking like a container-sized vending machine. So it goes and picks it from the container, brings it out, and you could actually order on. So you could order, a small version would be like sunglasses or whatever. Yes. But you could literally put it on the front of a shipping container and it goes and picks the costume and spits it out.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So there's some fun conversations that I'm having. Like I'm just dreaming with stuff and the conversations are happening. So I don't really know where it's going to go, to be honest. But I I think some of those use cases are pretty strong, and you know, it's where it could fall out.
Especially when we're talking about, you know, the next generation of the retail experience and how you truly unify commerce.
Yeah.
So that way it's not just around it's that whole commerce anywhere piece.
Yeah.
You know, you can shop in the way that you want, where you want, how you want, and have a interactive and engaging experience at the same time.
Yeah.
And truthfully, I think there's a lot that needs to be done in Australian e-commerce in particular. E-commerce, Australia commerce, because I just think the retail experience is lackluster.
Yeah,
But some of the brands that are now innovating and really thinking about what that means for their customer and how they bring it to life, that's the generation that we're now going into. And this can easily become a real leader in that shift. I think it's amazing.
Yeah, I think it could be.
Yeah,
I was
cool.
stunned, like, because obviously, you know, we had conversations throughout the project, and when I saw it come to life, I was like, wow, like mind blown. I was like, holy shit, like beat that out. This is next level.
Yeah, it is. It's pretty cool. I love it. I love playing with it. That's for sure. It's a cool new toy.
Yeah.
Kids must love it.
I mean, from a business point of view, I mean, the original thinking for me around the pilot was, you know, we'll pilot this, but the scalability is pretty cool with it. I was thinking like, oh, imagine next year I've got one of these in every shopping mall in the country, and all I have to do really, I mean, getting the range on there is a sunk cost, whether I do 1 or 100. I've got to pop up mirrors, so there's the cost of the mirror. But if I can find a way not to staff them with this little fairy, they could be popped up in every shopping center. I don't have staff wages to deal with. I don't have real estate. Really, it's tiny. We're talking about 50 centimeters by a meter. I could put it on a wall, for example.
Yeah.
From a fulfillment and from a stock point of view, it's just e-commerce fulfillment.
Yeah.
So it's got huge potential in terms of my business and scalability.
Yeah.
But I can see that being a massive influence for the retail community in terms of why they might use it, because that's our 3 biggest costs: stock, staff, and rent. You know.
Exactly. Especially for a pure play business who doesn't have any physical presence, it would be a game changer.
I mean, I have been asked by property groups about bringing pure plays in with this because they've been looking at it for years. Like, how do we bring pure plays into shopping centers? How do we get them into the physical space? And they've been looking at it too, right? But they don't want to pay for rent. They don't want to pay for stuff. That's not their model. This might be the middle ground. I'm hoping this is kind of the middle ground that brings a few of that together.
But even you know, when you were talking about your use cases before, that whole concept of creating hype around a line, and I know that there are a couple of pure plays that have entered into the retail space, Dish being one of them, and I love their Bondi store. There's always a line out the door.
Man.
You know, how do you engage your customers who are waiting in line in a way that, you know, is meaningful? I see the perfect use case of that. Nike or, you know, whatever other shoe brand that has a shoe launch. You can just imagine
Nike's actually done the mirror without checkout for the Shocker. They did it during the World Cup, the Women's World Cup.
But you can't check out on it.
But you can't buy
That's
it.
the thing. It's it kind of is, you've gone that
They've
next
missed.
level.
They've missed. I mean, that's what one retailer said to me. They said that's the missing link. We think that's why we want to do it, because we've been looking at this for years and we've tried a few things, but checkout is the missing link. You know, so I hope they're right. I think they're right, but I hope so.
The best checkout in the world.
Heard it here first.
We are using the best checkout in the world.
Love it. Awesome. So we're going to move on to our next segment, which is rapid fire. Is that what we call it?
Yeah,
rapid fire
whatever.
questions, whatever. Just some quick questions.
I thought you were already rapid firing at me.
No,
it gets faster.
This is quicker. We want the
geez.
very shortest version of the answer.
All right.
Let's start with, who is someone in business that you look up to?
Oh, someone in business, I would say Richard Branson.
Okay.
Yeah, real innovator, pioneer. I love it.
Have you been on one of his
No, I know those
CEO
trips. Yeah,
showcase?
I've looked at them a few times, but I know I've never done it.
One day.
Have you done it?
No.
No.
No,
I haven't, but I'd love to.
Yeah.
Hey, go on it together.
Yeah, that's
Richard,
it.
if you're listening,
Sponsor us.
Yeah.
Awesome. Next question. I think this one I'm really interested, because obviously you've been in the industry for a very long time, and I think there's a lot that our listeners can learn from you. If you could give one piece of advice to our listeners based on your experience in the industry, what's like just a piece of nugget, a golden nugget that you can give?
Golden nugget. I think that what we talked about earlier around talk to your customers, like physically get out there and talk to them. So don't just like ask your stuff either, like go out there and serve them, or jump on the emails for a little bit or something like that. You'll be surprised at what you learn. Yeah, I mean, that's probably the one big thing. I think every business owner should be doing it. Be like undercover boss type stuff. You need to get in there to know what's going on at the front line.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's really good advice
Yep.
because it's always underlooked. Next question. What is your favorite book in the sense of a book that's influenced or inspired you?
The 1 Minute Manager, I'd say, is my favorite sort of book. That when I think about like sort of books that I use and apply every day, like managing people, using different models or different ways of managing people differently in different roles in different situations. So it's definitely a book. If you haven't read it, you probably need to check it out.
1 Minute Manager.
Yeah,
I'm going to put that on my list.
Put that on your
A lot
list.
to
It's a good
put
one.
on our list.
Next question. What you obviously get a lot done in the day. You run a few businesses now. What's your number one productivity hack?
Oh, look, I don't know if this is like revolutionary or anything, but certainly like I run my life by email. So like if I think of something or someone, I'm like, email me that. Like, if I'm speaking, so everything's in email. And then I have super categorization. I mean, I have a category for things to do after hours. I have a category for things to do during hours. I have things to do when I'm at my Campbelltown store. I have a thing to do when so it's basically they're a bunch of to-do lists in a way in an email.
Yeah.
And I find that's a super productivity hack because when I go to my Campbelltown store, I just work through my Campbelltown stuff. And then if I get through that, then I go through the people there and I work, it batches the thing. So you're not hitting people with 5 different small questions over 5 separate conversations. You go and speak to them, go, look, can we have a quick 5-minute, 10-minute conversation? And you hit them with the 5 things all in one go.
Nice.
Or when you're at the store. So I just find really being really well organized is critical.
Yeah.
I mean, all of us probably get I know I get like 200 to 300 emails a day.
Yeah.
I spend at least an hour just organizing them. And I find that super important because if you're not you're not going to be efficient. You're going to
Drown.
you're going to drown.
Yeah.
It's
Nice.
funny.
I like that.
We've now got a social media agency helping us out with our socials. Hey, be seen. But they are very Gen Z and they don't believe in emails.
Oh my god!
And
what do they use instead? Do they use like an Asana or
iMessage.
I don't know.
iMessage?
Yeah.
Oh man, I don't know. Is that gonna
Yeah. Apparently it's a Gen Z thing.
Yeah.
We're like, we
Shit.
don't do emails. We're like,
But can't stuff
okay.
get lost?
Or they'll
Stuff
pick
gets
up
lost, no?
the phone and like the important stuff is in email.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then the
I mean, we have
chit-chat.
Asana as well. We use Asana.
Yeah.
Asana's great.
Yeah.
Which I find is better for any task that's going to bounce around.
Yeah.
It never gets lost.
Yeah.
It's always someone's responsible for it.
Yeah.
And you want to get shit out of your pile.
Yeah.
You know what I mean with Asana? So you flick it over the fence a lot.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I love that.
Amazing. Okay, last segment is the segment where we get to review a product, and Hannah's got a great one for us.
So I've just recently discovered this brand, and this was a classic case of Instagram ad popped up, and I just liked the look of the product. It's called Welly. It's essentially dehydrated smoothie in the sense of it's all natural, no preservatives, no nasties. It's quite literally 100% plant-based, fruits and vegetables that you put, I'll do it in a minute, you put in a shaker, you add water, you shake it up, and then it comes to life. So I think it's just solving that problem of, hey, I'm a busy person.
Yeah.
Sometimes I don't eat breakfast, or sometimes I want a quick snack.
I didn't eat breakfast.
Very,
I'm so
very
hungry right now.
quickly. I know. So you're gonna
Can
love
you make
this.
one?
I know. And it's healthy, right? You're getting your fruits and vegetables in. So I think what they're doing is great. So I thought, what a good opportunity to share this with our listeners and to review it. Australian brand, Melbourne based.
Amazing.
Hopefully we'll get them on the show as well.
Yes.
So this is the smoothie variety pack.
What flavor are we gonna have?
What are options?
what
What are the
are-
options?
yeah.
Okay, there's berry, there's tropical, there's mango, there's mocha, and there's green.
Ooh,
Ooh, do I need a bit of caffeine? Is there
mocha. I
caffeine in
know the mocha
Mocha.
screamed to me.
The only thing is the mocha is suggested to have with plant-based milk or milk, and we've only got water.
Okay, so
All right, I'll go berry.
berry.
Yeah.
Berry? Okay, we've only got to do one because otherwise I'm just going to keep on.
Can
Gonna
I
make
have a look
milkshakes
at
for the
the,
next 2 hours.
Let's see.
You can have a look at the ingredients.
All natural, no sugar. Nice. Okay,
Well-
so the berry that we're having it's 30% pear. We've got carrot, strawberry, beetroot, raspberry, apple, pumpkin, cinnamon, nutmeg, and nothing else.
Yeah.
So I'm very interested to see how this is
that's
going to
interesting.
taste.
And nothing else.
And nothing else.
Oh gosh.
wait. So it's got like so it's non-dairy.
Non-dairy.
Yep.
It's plants only, 2 servings of fruit and veg, gluten-free, vegan-friendly, no added sugar, all natural. Do you know what? This is fantastic, but I'm just so curious to see how it's going to taste
Have a look
because
at the
no
packaging.
added sugar. It's risky.
No
Yeah,
added
it is
sugar.
risky, isn't
But
it?
pear is quite sweet, isn't it? So that would sweeten it up.
Right.
It's fantastic because when I make my smoothies, I do it in my NutriBullet, which I can't always do if I'm in a rush.
Well, I could even see you adding this into a
A smoothie.
like maybe adding a banana or some milk or whatever it might be, and using this as almost like the base.
Yeah.
Because you're getting extra. You're getting I like the veggies in it too.
Yeah, exactly.
So anyway, shaking it up.
Like
Shake, shake, shake.
vibrant color.
Yeah, vibrant color. It also gives you the bottle. Oh goodness, I think I
Did
just.
you just? That's gonna stain.
Sorry,
too.
Dean.
It's got
Sorry.
it's got beetroot in it.
I think we're good.
That's all right. I got a
Don't
colourful
think I got
shirt. You
it
can't
on
see it. Don't worry.
Hey, the chief party officer over here is used to
Yeah,
having
that's
fun.
Yeah, that's
Okay,
right.
I'm gonna pour a little bit into everyone's glass.
It's got a bit
And
of a
I
thick
actually-
consistency.
It is. I actually haven't tried this one yet either.
Okay.
So I've tried the mango. I've tried the passion fruit. I really like them both. But this is the first time trying the berry.
Do you usually get your fruit and veg intake for the day? Are you good with that, or are you a bit like?
Yeah, no, I do.
Yeah.
I'm not too bad with that stuff. I
Yeah.
eat sort of pretty healthy.
Yeah.
Being the Greek man
I-
likes his
Yeah.
meat and veg.
I don't eat enough fruit. That's the one thing I forget
Yeah,
to
I don't
eat.
eat enough
Veggies fine, but
But
fruit,
don't you ever
I just
don't you ever
forget.
cut it off
Right,
for your kids
guys?
and then they don't eat it and then you get the
That's
leftovers?
true.
Now you
I
can-
get my fruit
Yeah,
that way.
yeah. Very true.
Whatever they don't eat.
Yeah.
You can
Or the
quite
greens they don't
literally
eat.
see, I think, the raspberry seeds or whatever
Yeah.
it might be.
Ooh, I like
come
that.
to
Smells
life.
nice. It
Smells nice.
Yeah.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Good.
Big ears.
Cheers.
Oh yeah.
That's really nice.
It's good.
Yeah, it's really good.
It's not what you expect, huh? Like it definitely tastes natural. Like you can taste that there's no added sugar, but
It's not sweet, but it
I'm
is
trying
sweet.
to
No.
explain this. It's kind of like, have you ever had those all natural fruit straps?
mm-hmm.
I buy it
Yeah.
for my daughter.
Yep.
In like the health section. It kind of tastes like that, like a fruit strap, especially one that has either chia seeds or passion fruit pieces in it. I like it.
It's good
Yeah.
and it's quick. It's quick, man. It is just that easy, like ability to
good.
get your fruit and vegetables in it. And you can see how you could add this to as a
I was-
additional
I was
smoothie
like,
base.
I was also thinking like you could add like what do you call it? Soda
Alcohol.
water and alcohol too. You could add soda water, make it
Oh my
fizzy.
goodness. You could.
It could. It might be a bit too thick for
You reckon?
alcohol.
I don't know.
Maybe, but if you add more liquid, maybe.
True.
Anyway, so Dean,
Yeah.
if you were this brand thinking about marketing, collaborations, like logistics, distribution channels, what would your advice to them be?
Use the magic mirror.
Oh wow, there's so many things. I've got to come up with a whole business model in 3 seconds. Look, I don't know. I love how you guys sprung this on me when we got here. So I don't have any time to
how
think.
we
So you
do.
really are really putting me on the spot. Look, I mean, one of the things we talked about just there was you guys were like, oh, I'm really hungry, so this would be like a filler. And you know, McDonald's did that. I don't know if you heard that McDonald's survey where they did they looked at their smoothie, their thick shakes, right? And they were trying to figure out how they sell more thick shakes. So they did a bunch of research. They found out why people have their thick shakes is not because they want a drink with their meal. It's actually because they want a meal substitute to carry them over to lunchtime or carry them over to dinner, or so it's to carry you over.
Yeah.
And maybe that's where these guys could think about as well, because you guys were
Yes.
talking about the exact same thing. It was like,
Yep.
well, that's
True.
crazy. You guys are actually saying, oh, I'm so hungry. This might plug the gap.
I want another
Yeah.
one.
So maybe that's where these guys could think about that could be their market is like a meal substitute. You got to be careful, but like
yeah.
Yeah,
But
maybe
like
not substitute,
like
but it's
filler.
like the
filler?
like that quick snack that I need in between, meetings or in between, running to events or activations, because you can have it in
Yeah.
your bag really easily.
or in your drink bottle or whatever. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think maybe that's the thing. I think the packaging's pretty cool. Like
Very
obviously it's
nice.
very, but then maybe the messaging needs to think about what's the customer actually buy their product
Yeah.
and do with it. And if it's that,
Yeah.
then the packaging needs to reflect that, which it doesn't.
Yeah,
But if it is about a health food, like if you're trying to get vitamins from it or some particular, then it needs to focus on that instead and saying you get this from it. And that's what, that's the key
Yep.
USP. So yeah, probably just think about because if it's just a smoothie, well, people probably like, well, I can get a smoothie anywhere.
Yep.
And I can probably get one that tastes, so it's like, what is the reason people are buying it, and,
For sure.
yeah,
Yeah.
and focus on that,
yeah. Anyway,
love
love it.
Awesome.
Well,
I
thank
don't know.
you.
Does that answer the question?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we just
There's
have
no
it as
right
a
or wrong.
conversation,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
It's just
yeah.
more so around how to think
I
about
love this
something differently.
perforated top though, because that's the worst thing about getting stuff like this is that then what do you do? Put it in another little container or something?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And,
Well,
and then use the box.
Admittedly, I think if I opened that incorrectly there.
Yeah, you
So
did. You
let's
opened it
just-
with a box, and I'm like, it's got the perforated edge to tear here. It says tear here.
I know. Oops. My
Yeah,
bad.
all good, all
No,
good.
that's great.
Anyway, all right.
Dean, thank you so
Great,
much.
great to chat with you guys. Always
Yeah.
fun.
Awesome.
Had a good time.
Always a lot of great time. And we absolutely can't wait
And thanks
to
for
see
lunch.
with the mirror. It's not a meal replacement. It's a filler. Go and have a proper lunch. We can't wait to see what happens with the mirror.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
am confident that this episode here is going to be
This is where you hear it.
Exactly.
Heard it
Yeah,
first.
and it's going to be incredible.
so.
Yeah. So thank you very much
Thanks for
joining
chatting,
us
guys.
again.
Good times.
Just gotta like boogie away.
I need a burger and fries and a thick shake. I'm hungry.
Offset it. I hope you think check offset it. Me too. I'm hungry, man.